Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful Reading with Your Kids studios in the neighborhood known as Reedville in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. We have a wonderful show for you today. We love it when our friends come back to tell us about their new projects. Well, we have had this guest on in the past to talk about her book, Eavesdropping on the Elephant. Patricia Newman is back to tell us about Neema's Reason to Smile. Oh, and if you're the author of the great show in this book, you want to make sure that you listen to this episode because Patricia talks about the importance of critique groups and how we can make the most of that resource to help us really step up our children's literature game. Hey, I wanna encourage you to step up and join us at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, November 23rd and 24th at Navy Pier in Chicago. The Reading with Your Kids podcast will be there with a totally interactive booth, giving you an opportunity to find out what it's like to be part of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. You may be on a future edition of the show, and you may also win our giant prize basket filled with toys and games that will bring your family hours and hours and hours of fun. You know, being at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair is going to give you and your kids a chance to play with life-size toys and games, meet inventors, meet authors, and participate in totally interactive stage shows. It's an amazing experience. I can't wait to be there, and it is happening November 23rd and 24th, Chicago Toy and Game Fair at Navy Pier. Go to shytag.com, CHITAG.com. Use the promo code RWYK. That's our initials, Reading with Your Kids. RWYK. Save $3 off every ticket, and there's no limit as to how many tickets you can buy. You can buy tickets for your entire for your kids' entire elementary school. Bring them all down on the bus. It'll be great. It's happening November 23rd and 24th at Navy Pier in Chicago, the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. Joining us on the line right now from Sacramento in California, one of my favorite guests, one of our wonderful STEM authors. She's been on the show before talking about her beautiful book, Eavesdropping on the Elephant, and she also talked to us about the level of cooperation that is needed in the different STEM fields. She's here today to talk about her brand new book called Neema's Reason to Smile. Please welcome back Patricia Newman. Patricia, how are you?
I'm great, Jed. Thank you so much for having me again.
I am excited. Patricia and I were just talking about books and Costa Rica and places to go, and it's always great to reconnect with friends, and I've made so many friends on this podcast. Patricia, you certainly are one of them. I can't wait to hear about Neema's Reason to Smile.
Well, Neema is one of those books that came to me through a friend. This woman in my critique group, my writing group that meets every twice a month or so, said, I have a librarian friend who's looking for an author to write a story about some school in Africa. Is it okay if I give her your name? Because you've been to Africa, Patty, and you've written a number of things. You write about animals from Africa. You seem like a better fit than me. So I'm always a little leery about being referred like that, but I thought, okay, all right, let's give it a chance. So anyway, this woman is named Donna Rosenblum. She's a former librarian. She works for the BOCES office in Nassau County on Long Island.
Sure.
And we started talking, and we hit it off. She's just one of those people that you know immediately is going to be a lifelong friend.
Wow.
So Donna, at the time, was on the board for a nonprofit organization called Reason to Smile. And the organization was founded by a woman named Keela Dates. Keela visited Mtwapa, Kenya when she was in college. It was one of those study abroad things. And she was working at this school in Mtwapa called Jumbo Jipya School. Jumbo Jipya is Swahili for something new. And I don't know how much you know about the Kenyan public education system, but school is free. Pencils and other supplies and uniforms and transportation to and from the school are not. So typically, even though a student has access to education, that student might not be able to go to school because the family can't afford all of the other things that go with it. And what Jumbo Jipya School does is it was founded by a woman named Christine Mwende, who is a native Kenyan. She's a nurse, and she decided that she was tired of seeing kids on the streets not being able to go to school. So she started this school, and she talked to the local elders in the various tribes and convinced them that their children needed an education in order to be able to succeed in a 21st century world. And she does this convincing every day. There are a number of orphans who live in the orphanage that's supported by Reason to Smile. Donna Rosenblum is now the executive director of that organization. And then there are also village children who, they might walk 2, 3, 4 miles to get to school one way. So education is a valued commodity by these children, but it's often very hard to make it happen. And Christine is sort of the grease on the wheels that allows these kids to get the education that they need. So Donna came to me with this idea. We need to write a story about this school and what it's doing. And, after she's very persuasive, she's wonderful. And after hearing her talk with love and passion about this school, I couldn't agree more. And I wrote the book. It was a difficult sell because I am not Kenyan. And the trend in children's publishing these days is own voices. Have you heard of that? Sure. Quote unquote, own voices. Whereas people from an underrepresented group should be the people that write stories about underrepresented groups. And Donna and I talked about that, and we realized that it wasn't going to happen unless I wrote the story. And this is the kind of story that everybody needs to know about because it's a success story. It's a story of perseverance. It's a story of believing in yourself and setting goals and making them happen. And while Neema is not a real person per se, there is a child at the school named Neema. This is not her particular story. The Neema in my book is sort of a composite of a number of different children, if you will. And it's a story that absolutely had to be told.
I agree. But I want you to expand just a little bit. Tell me who needs to hear this story and why.
I think everybody needs to hear this story in a number of different groups. I think children in Africa need to hear this story because it's very important for them to go to school. And a number of studies have been done, and specifically by the Malala Foundation. The Malala Foundation was started by Malala, whose last name I can't pronounce, but that Pakistani girl who was injured by the Taliban because she wanted to go to school. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. But her organization has discovered that girls who go to school have fewer children. Girls who go to school, when they do have children, they take care of those children with proper health care. Girls who go to school spend their money wisely on their families. Girls who go to school have community have a sense of community, so their communities thrive. Girls who go to school often have successful businesses. So there are all these reasons to educate kids in developing countries. So anybody in a developing country should read this book. I think people in the United States should read this book because so often we feel like, everybody has the same privileges that we have, and that's absolutely not true. I think it's important for kids to develop as global citizens and understand the challenges that other children face around the world, and perhaps step in as a social justice project to help make it a little easier for those children. So, for instance, there were 2 children in Long Island named Liliana and Sarah who read Neema's Reason to Smile in their school. And they took it upon themselves to talk to their mom and say, we want to do something for the kids at Jumbo Jipya School, Neema's school. And they talked with their mom about how they might accomplish that, and they had a couple of ideas. They wanted to sell bracelets. Donna Rosenblum brings back beads from Africa, and she makes these very inexpensive but beautiful paper bead bracelets. And Sarah and Liliana said, we want to sell these bracelets. That's how we want to support a student at Jumbo Jipya School. So Sarah, I believe, was in 3rd grade, and Liliana was in 1st grade, I think. They went to their principal, and they pitched their idea. The principal said, okay, but you're going to have to talk to your peers in the school. So they prepared a PowerPoint presentation on the merits of supporting Jumbo Jipya School and buying bracelets to help make that happen. They presented in front of their whole school. They organized a fundraiser, and they raised over $300, which $300 supports a child at Jumbo Jipya School for 1 year. So these 2 children instigated this social justice project all on their own. It was their idea.
I love that, and I agree. I agree. Kids here in the States need to understand that they are privileged beyond imagination. But I also hope that in understanding that and hopefully developing some empathy and being like these 2 girls, helping out and supporting kids in developing countries, but I also hope that it may help them appreciate what they have more.
Yes, we're hoping that it helps them appreciate what they have more. But I am always encouraging kids to also not only appreciate what you have, but step outside your own little world for a little bit and understand walk in somebody else's shoes for a little while. Understand what it means to be a child like Neema and to fight to get to school just to be able to learn to read.
Yes, it's incredible, and I think it is. We talk here on the podcast a lot about using books as a way of introducing our kids to different cultures, and that's a beautiful thing. But I think this is incredibly important that all of our kids understand that we are living in different circumstances. There are kids living in the world today that need to walk 4 or 5 miles to get fresh.
Right.
So, this is wonderful. I love it. Oftentimes I ask authors what the reaction is, of people after they experience the book, and what a beautiful story to have these 2 girls be inspired by your book to go out and to raise money and to make a difference for a child over in Kenya. That's beautiful.
Right. There's another group of 6th graders at a school in Long Island who does this kind of a fundraiser every single year, and they've made a commitment to support a child at Jumbo Jipya School every year. So the book is generating that kind of action on the part of U.S. students. But, not every school has the wherewithal to develop that kind of program. Maybe your parent population can't support that kind of program. But Neema's Reason to Smile can be used in a number of different ways. You know me, Jed, I'm all about STEM, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people look at this book and say, well, Patty, this isn't a STEM book, but there is a STEM connection. So Neema is saving money to go to school. She knows that there are certain expenses. She knows that her family can't afford them. So she and her mom developed a dream basket and are saving their money. Well, instill some financial literacy in kids. What does it cost you to school every day? What can you save for? What do you have to budget for? What kind of savings plan would you create to buy the next book that you can't live without? So instill some financial literacy in kids. In the very, very youngest kids, you could talk about the value of the different coins and bills in our currency, in our U.S. currency. But then there's also a language device, a literacy devices link as well. So Neema's Reason to Smile takes place in Kenya, and it's a setting foreign to most U.S. children. So I included a lot of the wildlife that might be found in Kenya. Obviously, on the page where Neema's walking by a cheetah, she wouldn't be walking right by a cheetah. But This is the kind of environment where cheetahs live, on the open plains. And in order to introduce young readers to this wildlife, I often use similes. So for an example, mile after mile, my bare feet trace the dusty path that unwinds like a cheetah's tail all the way to town. That's a simile. And as I'm reading this story to children in assemblies, I ask them to raise their hand when they hear a simile. And they get every single one. They understand what similes are by the end of this book. So there's so many ways to use this book in school as a way to improve students' writing, financial literacy, social justice. And it's just a darn good story. Neema is an inspiring character. She really is. I absolutely love her. I feel like she's a real person.
Yeah. Well, and another great thing that we can use Neema's Reason to Smile to help kids understand is that Neema is living in Kenya. And Kenya is one country on the continent of Africa. There's so many people here in the States who just, I'm going to Africa. What part? Just want to go to Africa. And they don't understand that Africa is a continent with these different countries and these different cultures and languages and peoples. Right. And it's just not this one big thing. Right. Yeah. Wonderful. Right. I'm so excited that we have a chance to talk about this and to talk about, I love the idea of talking to kids about financial literacy because we don't talk to kids about finance. In fact, about the only message that kids get about finance is you got to get into the best school in the world. No talk about how we're going to pay for that,
Right. Right.
But so many wonderful things coming out of this, and it must be fun for you to have taken on this challenge, a challenge that you really weren't sure you wanted to take on, and to be able to create something so wonderful.
I am very glad that I did this project, but I have to say I was a little nervous. As I mentioned, I'm not an Own Voices author, but I am a nonfiction author, and I know how to research. So I did my research. I made sure that this wasn't inaccurate. I made sure that I was ascribing characteristics, correct characteristics to Neema. I made sure of the setting. I made sure of the school. I asked so many different questions of Donna, of Keela, of Christine Mwende, who everybody calls Teacher Madam, like we do in the book. And I just, like I do every one of my nonfiction books, I just research until I felt like all of my questions were answered. And then, of course, Mayor Dr. Amini's beautiful illustrations, I think they're so vivid and bright and child-friendly. I absolutely adore them.
Well, I'm glad you took on this challenge, and I absolutely appreciate the importance of representation in kids themselves, the pages of books. I love, that we're encouraging authors to write about themselves and write voices. But when a story needs to be told, it needs to be told, and it's better to have the story be told and to share this message than to wait around for a year or 5 or 10, or maybe no one will tell the story.
Exactly. And there are 2 other cool things about this book that I just want to mention. There's a whole discussion, question, and activities spread at the back of the book, including an activity on making your own dream basket.
Oh.
And then there is a primary source page where we have pictures of kids at Jumbo Jiffy School, the real kids at Jumbo Jiffy School, and quotes from them on what their dreams are. And when Donna went to Africa after Neema was published, Neema's Reason to Smile was published, she sent me a picture of 2 of the boys pointing to their picture in the book. So for these kids to see their story, to see themselves in the book, was an incredibly powerful validation of all of the work that they have done to get to and stay in school.
Well, it doesn't sound like those kids object to you telling their story.
No, they did not. They were very proud and very happy to have their story told.
That's really wonderful. And I love that this kind of journey for you started in your critique group. We have lots of authors on the show, and I think a lot of authors toil by themselves, and very solitary. And just take a minute or two just talking about the value of authors finding critique groups and why they should go out and find one.
I have been a member of this particular critique group for, maybe 15 years or more. And these women know me. We trade personal information. We trade industry information, what we've heard about this editor, what we've heard about that house, what books we've read. And we write all different things. Some of us write picture books. Some of us write nonfiction. Some of us write for younger kids. Some of us write YA. So we're all over the map. But the thing that we have in common is 2 things we have in common. We're all readers, and we all love children's literature. So we have been helping each other, critiquing each other's work, bringing out each other's voices twice a month for many, many years. And none of my books would be possible without them, really. They're my first line of defense. They make sure I don't send something awful to my editor.
Well, I'm remembering back to our conversation about how many people are necessary to make something like the eavesdropping project on the elephant work. That you need engineers, you need sound engineers, you need scientists, and it makes sense to create a beautiful children's book, whether it's YA or nonfiction or picture book. You need people with different skill sets and different perspectives to come together and to contribute to that.
Yes, you do. It's just it's a group project. There's no doubt about it. And even after the author gets a manuscript that's in decent enough shape to submit to an editor, if that manuscript is then purchased by the publishing company, then there's another whole village of people who bring that book to life. When I wrote Neema, obviously, I didn't know what Neema was going to look like on the page. I had a vision of her in my mind, but I didn't know what the illustrator was going to do with her. And so that's another whole discovery process for me. I absolutely love seeing my words brought to life with illustrations.
That's wonderful. Well, I know folks are going to love checking out your website. Remind everybody, please, where they can go to find out more about Patricia Newman and all of the great books that you're creating.
Okay, you can find me at patricianewman.com. Don't forget that middle initial. patriciamnewman.com.
We have been talking to the author of Neema's Reason to Smile, a really important book, I think, that will make a big difference in your kid's life and also your life, too, helping you gain more appreciation for what we have here and also empathy for folks who don't have as much, and hopefully inspire you to do something about that. Patricia Newman, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here again.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I'm so excited. This was such a fun interview for me. Victoria Gracie is going to be our guest. She's going to be telling us about Kip and the Magic Belt. Now, one of the funny things about this is I'm speaking to Victoria and getting to know her and checking out Kip and the Magic Belt, and then all of a sudden I put 2 and 3 and 4 together, and I said, Gracie, and you're writing about jiu-jitsu. Are you part of that famous Gracie family, the royalty of jiu-jitsu? And she said yes, and it was just such a fascinating conversation, and you don't want to miss it. This is going to be fun. Victoria Gracie on the next Reading with Your Kids podcast. I'm a big UFC fan and MMA fan, and I had just a wonderful time. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is Victoria does a lot to dispel a lot of misconceptions about martial arts and what people think it is. And that really isn't. It's not about going out and beating people up. It's actually the opposite. And I have a deep love and respect for martial arts. And my kids participated in it. And you're gonna love getting to know Victoria. You're gonna love getting to know about Kip and the Magic Belt. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, I'm sure you were surprised to find out once that book was published, you were the person that had to do most of the marketing. Yeah, right? Like a surprise, right? You were like, no, I'm an author. I don't sell. Well, if you want your book to get out there, you need to sell. You need to get out there. And it's so hard to do it alone, but you don't have to do it alone. We would love to help you. We have lots of ways that we can help you. Let the world know about your fantastic book. You can be a guest on the show. It's fun. It's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. We also have our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. If our panel of kids, parents, and teachers thinks that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read. And with that status comes all fantastic tools to help get the word out about your book. Check it out today at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Thank you, big thank you out to Patricia Newman. Be sure to check out Neema's Reason to Smile. Also want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. Check out her blog at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me, and most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking through the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.